Everybody, Friday, the
Merry
13th of
Christmas.
December. We're 12 days away from Christmas.
12 days.
12 days. What's the 12 days of Christmas? Hey, Rob Brown up here in Memphis, over here at the farm. Brendan
Should
Martin
make the
of
12
Florida.
days of Christmas for college football.
Yeah, it is. 12 days of chaos. 12 days of controversy, which is interesting. Hey, Brendan Martin down in Ocala where it's nice and toasty warm. Frank Duffy calling in on the show this morning, coming in from North Georgia, and Jasper Doug Dean from Birmingham in just a minute. Now, Gabe Gross bats leadoff literally this morning on the Friday Roundtable. We're going to have a lot of fun kind of bouncing around, talking some college baseball, football, basketball. It's a great time of year, folks. And, hey, if you love hearing the truth, you're about to hear it. Smash that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner and allow notifications on your Android and iPhone, because we're about to hear from one of the best out there, Gabe Gross from Dothan, down in the Wiregrass. Let's go. Look, I know that Doug Dean is going to be on here with us in just a moment. But Gabe, Frank, and I, there's Doug right there. You were at that meeting Monday, and I heard you gave one hell of a talk. And I texted Butch Thompson right before the show, and Greg Williams and Chris Gary, some friends of mine at Auburn, and I said, Gabe Gross is batting leadoff. But Doug, let's get this started because I'm ready to hear some cool stories.
Yeah, good morning, Gabe. Glad you could join us. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, guys. How are y'all?
Fantastic. For the audience, most people that have been around the state of Alabama, even if they don't say War Eagle, are well acquainted with the great Gabe Gross. Start with bloodlines. You know, you had to live in the shadow of the great Lee Gross.
Yeah.
But I think you turned it into a big advantage. He was center on that amazing, literally the amazing 72 day of Bama punt fame and other fame. But and then, of course, great career at Auburn. I'm going to get Gabe to talk initially about what you might have been one of the very last that no longer got to play both football and baseball. You can talk about that. And then, of course, not many people are fortunate to get even a cup of coffee in the major leagues. And Gabe had a marvelous career there with 40 home runs, 186 RBI. So, Gabe, just to warm things up, talk about those early days at Auburn and some of the experiences you went through trying to play both football and baseball.
You know, it really was, for me, I grew up, you mentioned my dad, Lee Gross, just growing up an Auburn fan. He was a center at Auburn and coming to games and having an opportunity to put on a jersey and play football. And then really what turned out to be my life's work is baseball. And I had such a passion for football, and it took a little while for me to realize that baseball was going to be my really my game, and I was more talented there. But a couple of experiences. The last game at Legion Field of the Iron Bowl, really the last true Iron Bowl. The whole reason you call the Iron Bowl is because it's in Birmingham, and so got to play in that ball game, and man, we jumped out to a 17-0 lead, and then Sean Alexander took over the game. And I mentioned in the talk to earlier this week, you had a dumb freshman quarterback make a couple of stupid mistakes. We dropped a punt, and the next thing you know, you look up and they win that ball game. And so, but it's an experience I'll never forget. Coming into that stadium, knowing the history of that stadium and being able to play in it was a marvelous experience.
Let me sell that even a little more for you, Gabe. So the athletes are humble. They sell them here in the South, at least. I'm not sure about above the Mason-Dixon. But, that was you talk about degree of difficulties, Frank and Rob, in an Iron Bowl or any big rivalry game. And you have Terry Bowden resign 6 games into the season. He was not fired. People should understand. He was probably going to be at the end of the season. But brother Bill Oliver takes over. Remember, Rob, interim coach. Number 22, you talk about pressure. You wear the Doug Flutie number as a freshman QB. And by God, you were looking like Doug Flutie jumping out to a 17-0 lead. And then, somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose Iron Bowls. But that was quite the experience. I should have warned you, Gabe, but he's a class act. Frank Duffy, bottom of your screen, is a big LSU man. And Duff can talk about he's in the early stages of getting to to be PA announcer at MLB games, and his dream is to get to do that down at Plainsman Park or LSU somewhere. Duffy, I'll pitch to you at this point.
Well, yeah, I'm actually second in line in case the PA guy at Plainsman Park goes down. I'm the guy they're going to call in, and for 2 years now, nobody's gotten sick. That's the bad part. By the way, Gabe, I got to let you know, I actually met your dad a gazillion years ago when the Superdome first opened when he was with the Saints.
Yeah,
that very first season in 1975, I was a Tulane ball boy, and of course, Tulane and the Saints shared the Superdome that very first time that they opened. And I'm telling you what, he's a tough dude, because anybody that could take a hit and fall on that nasty carpet, which was literally just sitting on top of concrete, he's a bad man. So I'm gonna let you know. But hey, Gabe, I got to tell you, I had to put on my Detroit Tigers cap. I got my Dodgers jersey on only because we're now talking about the most intelligent game in the world, and that is baseball with you. And there is nothing tougher. I will say this. Nothing tougher than trying to hit a round ball going 98 miles an hour with a spherical object where the sweet spot is about a half of a centimeter. Can you speak to what it was like not only to play at Auburn, a great college program, but also what it was like to go through the battles of all those spring trainings and schlepping around on those buses to then make it? I think it was Toronto that you were with for a while. What was it like that first time that you stepped on that green grass and hit white baseballs for batting practice?
Well, I just say it is a journey. If you make it to the big leagues, you are in the top 1% of the most mentally tough people on the face of the earth. It is a game that you deal with failure a lot, but there's some really highs when you know how difficult something is and you accomplish it. Especially against the best in the world. It's a big deal. I got called up to the big leagues. I was in Toronto, playing for Toronto, August 9th, 2004, and in Yankee Stadium. So I made my debut in old Yankee Stadium, which is something that I will, in South Alabama, to be honest with you, it was funny coming to that season riding in a plane. I had just going to Syracuse, New York, which was our AAA affiliate. I had a guy on the plane I was sitting next to ask me what was my dream big league team, and I was like, probably the Braves. I grew up in Alabama, and he was like, wow, I thought everybody wanted to be a Yankee. I'm like, well, I'm sorry, not everybody wanted to be a Yankee, but now looking back and man, making my debut in that stadium was really, really special. It is. I didn't realize it till I got there, and you could feel it all around you. I had a bloop hit my first at bat.
Wow. Good.
Derek Jeter lost in the sun, hit right on the back of the infield, and he couldn't make the play. He lost in the sun. And brother,
20 years later, that looked like a line drive at a box score.
It was funny. I'd met him. He was down on a rehab assignment the year before, and had met him and hit a double later in the series and got to second base. He walked over and was like, man, see how locked in I got you? You're welcome. He was a great dude, great guy to compete with. And really the biggest memory I've had of that was that right before I got in the box, which I never did, my wife always told me to look around a little more often and really enjoy what I was doing. And it's so difficult. It was tough to do that. You have to stay locked into what you're doing to compete at a high level. But right before I got in the box,
on the chin if you don't.
You believe that. Especially back when I was playing, stuff like that still happens.
Oh yeah.
I don't know that it still happens very much.
Look at the rookie looking around at the stadium. Zing.
Yeah. Well, I towed around the left side of that box, and right before I put my spikes in the box to dig in, it hit me. It's like, man, Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig and Mickey Mantle, they stepped in this box. Yeah. And it was a very surreal moment for me, and it lasted about 3 seconds, and then I realized, hey, I got to face El Duque right now. I better get my mind on what I'm doing.
Oh my goodness,
He's MVP at the moment, and got in the box and had it at bat, but it was a really crazy, awesome experience.
And by the way, those hooks that come in from Major League Baseball pitchers are not the same what you saw in AA or AAA. That's a different animal, man. That thing breaks off and you wonder where it went. Looks like it was in somebody's pocket.
Yeah, the sinkers and the sliders in the big leagues are a little bit different. I thought you'd hear in AAA, hey, this guy's a sinker slider guy before you had every spin rate and number known to mankind. I mean, it was very basic information. And then I really faced John Lieber the second day I was there, and he taught me what a sinker was. And I'd never seen anything quite like that. And then I actually faced Tim Hudson just a week or two later, and he really taught me what a sinker was. He threw a different. I don't know what you want to call that. I don't think it was a sinker. It was a fastball that was a split at the same time. But it's just a different level of stuff. It really is, and it is. You talked about how hard it is, and it is. I was just talking to one of my guys in the fall, and I just made the comment. I'm trying to shift his sights from being so pull side happy to the more the middle of the field and opposite field gap.
Go the other way.
One of the reasons I'm doing that is because he's having a hard time laying off of sliders and swinging at sliders that are out of the zone. But when you shift your focus a little bit, it gives you a little more time to see the ball and make that decision. And then my mind hit me. It's like it's 0.4 seconds that you have between 90-mile-an-hour fastball from release to the time you hit it. So if you're talking about as a hitting coach, if I said to you, you have more time if you'll shift you're probably talking about, I have no idea, 100th of a second that you're having more time. But to a ball player, that's everything. You're dealing in such a tight window of time, but you're used to it. There's an old quote, and I'm gonna miss who said it, but you can look it up. It said, "There's nothing to being a ball player if you're a ball player." And I think it was Casey Stengel, but for a baseball player,
or Yogi,
you understand how important those hundredths of seconds are in your decision-making process to be able to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish.
Well, going the other way is going to buy you maybe another 100th of a second or 200ths of a second.
It does, and it allows you to lay off some of the sliders you would have swung at, because if you're going to pull the ball, you got to get the head out in front.
I'd be saying
that pitch a little further out.
I'd be sorry, Gabe. I'd be saying no moss. Rob Brown.
Gabe, I love listening to you on Bill Cameron's show when I'm out on my bike riding. I'd have the show coming through my ears. A couple of things. I love what you said over the years. I think you said it was about 7th grade before your parents let you play. Your dad and mom, especially your dad. I grew up as a kid like your dad was a badass. That 72 team, they beat Florida 24-3.
Probably
the whole
still
family.
is.
Yeah, it still is. I mean, we all watched that game together. Dad's an Auburn grad. I am. Kids are. It's in our blood. But I love all these SEC schools. But man, you said it was about 7th grade before you started playing because they were so laid back, and you really enjoyed it because of that. And I think that's cool. And by the way, how many points on that deer on that wall behind you? Can we get a camera? There you go. Oh,
there you go.
Doug is the great deer hunter in this crowd.
That was actually
Bravo.
My first bow kill.
Right.
And I killed it at a guy named Scott Sullivan's place. Scott Sullivan pitched at Auburn, played in the big leagues about 9 years. And when I was young and getting started in the big leagues, he was a little older and had to let me borrow his bow to go out and bow hunt his place. And I fell in love with bow hunting. And that one's always special to me because that was my first one. But my growing up, the 7th grade was football. My dad wouldn't let me play until then. In fact, when I started playing baseball, I didn't play t-ball and baseball because they never told me it was an option. The coach pitch or whatever was the first level I played, and that was just because some friends of mine came by and were going to the ballpark to hit a little bit and asked me if I wanted to go, and then asked me if I wanted to play with them. And I came home and like, "Dad, can I play with them?" And they said, "There's a team out here. They'll give us jerseys and everything." And so he didn't push sports, even though he was an athlete, played in the NFL. He didn't push that on me or my brother. My brother wound up going to TCU on a football scholarship, played for Pat Sullivan out there. And he just let us make our own decisions. And it was never, I see all these parents and they're screaming and hollering at their kids and pushing them and year-round baseball. My gosh, don't get me started on year-round travel baseball.
Yeah, it's horrible. Blowing out
I'll
arms.
blow a gasket on it, especially for these young kids that are 8, 9, 10 years old. More times than not, the kid's burned out. More times than not, the kid's not good enough anyway, and just let him go be a kid, enjoy playing the game of baseball. And if he's good enough, he's good enough. And you don't need to play every 10 months out of every season in travel baseball. But I digress. It saved my body, and I still have plenty of time to develop. I'll give you a quick story. You mentioned the Amazings a couple of times. One of my favorite stories that my dad tells all the time. But in that game, when the 2 punts got blocked, Auburn got the ball back again. David Langner intercepted another pass late in that game, got the ball back with like 40 seconds left. And, of course, they run 3 plays, and Alabama timeout. They've got to kick the ball back to Alabama with, 15, 20 seconds left in the game. And my dad was not starting at the center, but he did long snap on all the extra points, field goals, everything at that point in time. And he would stand right by Shug, because Shug would, if it was 3rd and 28, Shug would punt on 3rd down instead of going for it. They didn't have an offense that could make those yardages, and so he always stood right beside him. And he said he wasn't nervous. He just fixing to go out and do his thing. And he took 2 steps on the field to go snap the punt. And Shug called his name and grabbed him and put his arm around him and pulled his face right up next to his face and said, "Don't screw this up."
Yeah, that's right. This is the most important snap you've ever had in your life, son. Now go do it.
He went to being really calm to all of a sudden it's just oh my gosh. And he ran out of the field, and he said when he got over the ball, he looked, David Beverly was a punter, and said he looked like a little AA Duracell battery standing back there, on the ground. And, just heart pounding out of his chest. And he said the thought went through his mind, I've done this right a million times in my life. I know what I'm doing.
You think it's not –
he didn't want to go from punt, Bama punt to punt, Auburn punt.
Yeah, in a heartbeat.
Seriously.
Auburn snap.
Gabe, we talk about, I as a long-suffering Auburn fan, but boy, the mountaintops are beautiful if you're an Auburn person. It's just we need more of those mountaintops. But we talk about the doctrine of Java, just Auburn being Auburn. If you give away that punt, Bama punt, legendary, iconic game because of a snap problem or a punt problem or a punt return, golly, that would seal the Java doctrine for all time. I was going to say, Gabe, our audience would be the one missing out if I didn't ask you to take our listeners inside that World Series when you were with Milwaukee and making a nice deep run. I don't want to be a spoiler here, but just talk about when you got to go up against a really, really loaded Red Sox team, and tell us what that experience was like, because you said rightly only 1% of young athletes get to on the field in MLB. The percentage must be microscopic to get to a World Series. Talk about that.
Yeah. Well, it really was special. By the way, it was Tampa.
Bad. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Tampa in 2008.
It's a hell of a run y'all had.
Look, I get to start telling stories about that year. Y'all are just going to have to cut me off. I mean, it really was a special year. I got traded. I was with Milwaukee to begin 2008. I was traded to Tampa April 22nd, so really early in that year. And Tampa was a different team. I mentioned this several to people every time I talk about it. I mean, when I got traded there in 2008, Tampa had been in existence for 10 years. They had finished dead last in the East 9 out of those 10 years. 4th out of 5 teams the one year they didn't finish dead last. And so all I really knew is I felt like I was going to an organization that wasn't going to win. They were 4 games under already on April 22nd, under 500. And then I got there, we won the first 9 games that I was there, and we were 5 games over 500. And that was the highest over 500 that organization has ever been, 5 games over 500. And so it was such a special run. I won't go into every detail, but to be in a city that had never won in baseball, to watch it come alive down the stretch, to the Boston Red Sox you mentioned had won the World Series in 2007. It was feel like they had a team that had almost an all-star and a Hall of Famer at every position. You had David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez and Josh Beckett, Kevin Youkilis, Dustin Pedroia, Jason Varitek behind the dish. You had Tim Wakefield. You had Papelbon closing. I mean, it was a stacked team. And if I went through our lineup, you could see the difference. I mean, there were some good players. We had Carl Crawford in center field before he was banged up later in his career. Was a great player. He had Evan Longoria was a rookie at third base, and we had a guy named Makanori Uemura that was from Japan that played second base. That was a wizard defensively. Jason Bartlett was our shortstop. You had B.J. Upton, who went off in the playoffs in center. I was playing a lot of right field, and Eric Hensky was out there with me a little bit.
Hensky, yeah.
Yeah, Eric Hensky. And so we had some guys, but it just, you can't compare those two. And to take those guys down in the AL East, win the AL East, and then to win Game 7. I remember we lost Game 1 to Boston in the ALCS, and David Ortiz said something, and I don't know that he meant it as an insult, but he might have. Just that there was a difference between the regular season and the playoffs, and Tampa had to kind of.
No, it was disparaging, yeah.
Yeah,
bulletin board.
Had to learn that they were experienced. They'd won it in 04, won it in 07. Hey boys, this is a little bit different, and then to put it on them and win Game 7. David Price got called up. It was a September call up, and then was our closer when we were in the playoff run. It was kind of crazy. Joe Madden, our manager, was a wizard, I thought, that year as far as managing people. We were pretty young. Had some older guys. Had Cliff Floyd. I didn't mention him. Cliff Floyd's one of my favorite teammates I ever had, and Troy Percival was on that team as a great older guy as a closer. So we had some older guys, but we were pretty young. And I'll give you a crazy story really fast, and I'll try to wrap this up a little bit. But they tied us in September. They tied us in September. In fact, September 1, we played the first game since May that we weren't the all-out division leader. Yeah. And the Red Sox caught us, and it was September call-ups. We had a guy named Dan Johnson who had only been up, I think, for a day earlier in the year. And he gets to the dugout in like the 5th inning, along with several other guys that had gotten called up that day. And we're losing. And if they win, and take you back even a little bit more, Boston, we hadn't won a game in Boston that year. They had swept us twice, and we had swept them twice at our place. And Joe Madden had told us after the first sweep that if we were going to win this thing, we were going to have to come back to Boston and beat them there. And anyway, we get to the top of the 9th inning. They bring Papelbon in, and with a runner on first, we pinch hit Dan Johnson, who showed up in the game in the 5th inning
in street clothes.
Walked in the back of the dugout.
Oh my God!
He hits a 2-run pitch hit home run. For us to beat Boston and go back up by a game, and we never trailed them again in the division.
That's wild.
And wound up winning the division, and then of course the ALCS, and then man, we thought we conquered the world when we beat Boston, and just were not as. I now would go to my grave knowing that we just were not as mentally as sharp, even though it was a World Series. Man, it was the Phillies, but. We thought, hey, we beat the Red Sox. That's the greatest team in the world.
They were that year, really.
That's right.
That was your biggest opponent.
And looking back, now you start looking at the Phillies in 2008 and Jimmy Rollins and Ryan Howard and Chase Utley. And
they were great.
They had a great team. But we felt like we had kind of planted the flag on top of the mountain after the ALCS.
Well, Gabe, I gotta steal 1 minute before we let you dash. Because people are out there saying, "Hey, tell us about Auburn baseball." Your batting coach, by Butch Thompson, a great friend of this Rob Brown program here, and everybody loves Butch at Auburn. But batting coaches, people. I don't think the average fan doesn't comprehend that you're a little bit Dr. Phil, aren't you? Working with this very delicately working with the psychology of these years. But talk about some of that, what goes into getting you talked about Toughness Monday. I'd love that people would love to hear about that. And then talk about what you try to do with a guy when he hits an inevitable slump.
Yeah, it is. I would say it's a 75% psychologist and a 25% actual hitting coach as far as the swing or an approach or something like that. It is. There's no doubt about it. Hitting is so mental. The little things that have happened throughout my years, but now also usually not a big mechanical adjustment. It's usually a thought adjustment. I was thinking this and I'm thinking that. It was being able to relax in big moments, or being able to just, to be honest with you, to play the game like you don't care, if you fail or if you succeed, because, I've heard the expression before, and I agree with it. You got to practice. You got to practice like your life depends on it. And you got to play like you don't care, and just hold the results with an open palm. And if you squeeze them, that you're so worried about getting a hit or so worried about the result, man, baseball doesn't reward it. I compare it to football because I grew up in a football family.
It's like a golf club.
Yeah.
It's like a golf club.
You can't hit a linebacker in the mouth in baseball. You can't just You can't just get really mad and frustrated and try to go drill somebody. That it doesn't work. It makes it worse. And so, I would tell you, parents that are raising kids, man, it's really hard. It's a really hard thing. The more that they can be able to be relaxed. Number one, the energy flows through the body better when the body's relaxed. The more tense they are, the slower the bat's going to be, the worse decisions they're going to make. And that mistakes happen. It's a really hard game. If you've ever been in the box and seen a fastball coming at you and have to make that decision, and all of a sudden the slider disappears below your bat when you didn't even see that it was going to be a slider, like it's a hard game. And just to the more that they can encourage them, the better. But at the same time, failure happens, and you have to be able to get over it. It's kind of like being a defensive back in football, man. You get burned one at bat, and you're still carrying that around with you. You're gonna get burned again.
Well, you're going to be unsuccessful 70% of the time that you're up there at the dish. I mean, if you're successful 35% of the time, you're in the Hall of Fame. That's the crazy thing about it.
It is the crazy thing about it, and it's a great game because of that. It teaches. That's why I said, like, if you can navigate the minor leagues and you get to the big leagues, if you had one at bat, and to be honest with you, for the most part, even if you're in the minor leagues, like your level of mental acuity, toughness. All these things, the ability to deal with failure, it is through the roof, because it is an extremely difficult thing to go through and to keep confidence and to keep going. Baseball just hits you in the mouth, and you just got to keep getting off the canvas and keep getting back up there.
Well, in the minors, you're in survival mode every second of every day, every pitch, every time you go to get on that bus again. Your livelihood is on the line. Not, I mean, look, there has to be at least a little bit of relief once you do make it to the show. Because you've gotten to that point. It's those lifers that are in the single A and double A and triple A. Man, those dudes have to be razor sharp all the time from a mental and psychological standpoint.
They do, but at the same time, and I heard something coming through the minor leagues, and I didn't think it was true because of how hard it was to get to the big leagues. And that was that it's harder to stay in the big leagues than it is to get in the big leagues. And that's very true. And as you talking about, you better take a breath and look around and say, man, this is awesome. I made it. And then that thought goes away.
That cup of coffee can be quick. That cup of coffee can be quick, huh?
Butch Thompson, and he's right. I love that. I texted him this morning and told him you were going to be on. He said something on the show one time. He said, the problem with people in today's society is not that they aim too high and miss. It's they aim too low and connect. And he talks about walking from the dugout to the plate. He goes, don't let the moment be too big. He goes, this is just an old boy from a trailer in Coontail, Mississippi now telling you this. And I'm like, we love the guy. And one of our interns, Oakley McFerrin, I talked to Coach Thompson. He wants to come over and volunteer. And he's a freshman, Sigma Nu pledge at Auburn, wants to work with y'all. But I told him, I said, you'll work like a rented mule, but you'll learn a lot. But also your speech about taking it easy with sports. In 14 years of volunteer coaching kids, I've used your speech and quoted and given you credit for what you said about, hey, make it fun. Don't live vicariously through your kids. Bill Cameron's a great friend of mine for 45 years. So I listen to the show every day, and you're welcome on the show anytime. Thank you, Doug, for bringing me.
Before he dashed, Gabe, I got to bribe you if it's all right. Now, there's probably at least maybe 1 or 2 weeks during the year that Butch lets you have some R&R. And I've got a 2,000 acre lease on the Cahaba River in Dallas County. Oh, wow. You got to come hunt with us. Can you do that? But my bribe is I would want you to hold court with our youth hunters. They're all playing ball, and let them have a chance to talk to somebody who's actually been out there. Would you do that?
Man, would love it, man. You get up with me and let me know some dates, and you don't have to twist my arm too much to talk about hunting and trying to get in the woods somewhere. So I'm good.
And I got one last question for you, Gabe. Did you and Huddy ever take it out to the backfield and have a few at bats just to solve that thing from the major leagues all those years later?
I've got it. If you've got 30 seconds, I got a great little story about Huddy and myself.
Yeah.
I was pretty successful off him, believe it or not, early in my career. I think I was 3 for my first.
Not many were.
And I was I had a little uppercut in my swing. I was a good sinker ball hitter. He was a sinker ball pitcher. And man, he got in like my 6th at bat in a 3-2 count. I'd fouled off about 4 pitches in a row, and he didn't have a cutter. He didn't have one. I don't know where it came from, but it speaks.
It showed up.
It speaks to the brilliance of really guys that play the game in a long time, that they can make stuff up when they need to just get an out. And it was like a 10 or 11 pitch at bat. Everything's running away from me. The changeups or the splits running away from me. The sinkers running away from me. Everything's going the same direction. It's a very comfortable at bat for me. And then all of a sudden he starts a pitch down the middle, and instead of running away, it cuts in. And I thought I'd broke my wrist trying to stop. I mean, it was the most awkward looking thing in the world. And our relationship changed. I never got another hit off of him the rest of my career. And so I don't want anything else to do with Tim Hudson. I had my fill of facing him, and I'm great. So whatever's on the books between the two of us is going to have to stay on the books.
Hey, Gabe, awesome. he had a cutter, but he saved it for special occasions.
Well, he brought it out, and it was not on a scouting report, and it was not anywhere else.
That's funny.
And I saw it in the 11th pitch of it at bat, and about my 6th or 7th at bat off of him. So I'd seen about 40 pitches off of him, and that was the first time I'd ever seen that cutter.
Hey, the three of us are going to come see y'all in Plainsman. Y'all win some games this year, Gabe.
Will do, guys. I appreciate it. Thank y'all so much for having me.
Oh, it's an honor. You're welcome anytime. Hey, that was fantastic. And you know,
like it, Rob. I
listened to him, you know, when he's on Bill Cameron's show for years, but that was so true about take it. His parents, he said, man, they were like, no. We're not, they were really cool about it. And look how it turned out. I think there's a lot to be said about that. This guy,
they had
George.
A tough year last year, Rob, but I think Eric Guevara, there's some guys that are primed to really break out at Auburn this year, but it's probably going to be like basketball. There's 10 or 12 teams that can cause you problems in SEC baseball.
Yeah, it's the most competitive league in America. I like this.
Hey, Rob, I got a boogie, brother. Y'all take care. Have a great weekend, guys. Yep. See y'all. Take care.
We'll see you next week. Thank you.
Mazel, baby.
Yeah. Look, man, there's a big story I'm going to get to in a second, but I want to say something about this George. He's out in Portland, Oregon, and
George is a fan. We appreciate you, George.
Yeah, and he grew up in Auburn. He's talking about it, and then he's a big Gator fan too. His dad owned the Heart of Auburn restaurant. I ate there that's where we used to stay. But thank you, George. Look, private equity, Doug. I got a call last night from a friend in athletics in the South, and it's interesting. You know, hey, do you know anyone that would want to buy an athletic department? That's where we are. The University of Wisconsin. There's preliminary talks, possibly for that to be purchased. You know, private equity. Think about it. Let's say you want to
possibly go wrong, right?
Yeah, what could possibly go wrong? You get over leveraged. They come in and buy a stake in you. All of a sudden, it ain't your company anymore. It's no longer who you are. We better be very careful. I'm not saying private equity is all bad, but these are state universities, and we better watch out because you get private equity coming in there, and they start telling you who to hire and fire and who to recruit. Be very careful going down this road. Too bad we don't have, someone like Gabe Gross in charge of that, because he would make common sense decisions. But damn, that's a scary thought.
Can you imagine? I'm being facetious here to make a point, but we are provocateurs on here, if nothing else, Rob.
Yes.
Can you imagine Nick Saban? When he's coaching at Alabama, they make the private equity move. I don't think Alabama would ever have to do that. They're flush, but and he has to have a weekly call with the private equity firm and talk about earnings and fan attendance and why he didn't run the score up market and help the brand. I don't see how the money. To me, it's very different when you talk about college football and how that interacts with a private equity firm. I don't get the ROI. You'd have to educate me on that, Rob.
Well, they'd be looking at, I'm sure, everything, gifting, to, Tide Pride, the Bull Gator Club, the Razor's Edge Collective at Arkansas, NIL. I imagine it would be a little bit of everything. Again, I'm against anything that makes college sports more like pro sports, because we're not. What I'd like to hear is somebody talk about that's signing with a college. They're actually going there to get an education. Not that there haven't been, some crazy things going on in the past, but we're at a crossroads right now. We'll figure it out. But I will say this, the money is going to dry up soon for NIL because Ohio State allegedly spent $20 million on the roster and got stomped at home 13-10 by a 7-5 Michigan team. That's 4 years in a row they've lost, Doug. I can't imagine having to answer, if I'm Ryan Day, to the board of directors or the shareholders. We've already got the portal, NIL. You've got kids can come and go whenever they want. No accountability. Tell me how that would work in the real world running a business, Doug. You and I can tell you, with no accountability, we've got the tail wagging the dog. Private equity, it's going to. I think where it's going to happen is smaller schools with smaller budgets will go that route out of desperation. I think that's dangerous.
I would, this is an X factor for coaches, for fans who really, I don't think fans by now have abandoned. We're still enjoying the games. The product itself is sensational and they're great athletes. The rivalries, for the most part, look like they always did. People hadn't checked out. On the other hand, I think if I were a private equity firm, I might want to keep my powder dry a little longer and see if there can be a antitrust exemption. I'm told by actual lawyers, not fake ones like me, that's the breakthrough that's needed, and which would set the stage for what Saban talked about, which these coaches have got, really the players have got to have contracts. If we're giving you we're giving you $500,000 contractually, you agree to stay at our program 2 years, for example. Now, if I'm a private equity firm, I want to know that I've got more reliability. And if you go spend the money to get a roster, can you keep it? And how predictable is that? Because wins and losses drive playoff berths. Wins and losses obviously drive the brand and drive everything that has to do with money. So I think that it's all in the hands of Congress and the SCOTUS. What could possibly go wrong?
Yeah. And my attorney, Jack Turner, I'll call him the barrister of sidelines, says the laws that the NCAA is concerned with that matter to them are antitrust laws. That's everything in their world. Let me say something real quick about this sponsor. You see the QR code on the screen. Winter Timber Outdoors. Doug, you got to go to this store. They're in Athens, Alabama. They came on the day after the presidential election, a fortuitous sign of great things to come in America and the world. I also broke ground about 3 weeks ago on a second store in Auburn on Opelika Highway. I walked in the store. It's beautiful. I have not been to a sporting goods store, outdoor shooting, all the shooting sports, deer hunting, duck hunting, quail, pheasant, grouse, prairie chicken, big game, elk, moose, Dall sheep, whatever you're going to hunt, you can get geared up at Winter Timber Outdoors. The staff, competent, they're well-trained, they know what they're doing. Kenny Winter and Dylan Monroe, his chief operating officer, fantastic people to work with. They're a huge Sitka dealer. They've got all the gear that you want to buy, and they will ship it to you anywhere. They're open every day of the week. Winter Timber Outdoors, and check out the QR code. Take a picture of it with your cell phone. Rete Masimara, GPS, buy one, get one. Great people. Let them know you heard about it on Sidelines. I got a lot of people that watch the show are telling me, man, I went in there, Brown. You're underselling it. It's even better in person. Winter Timber Outdoors. Proud to have them as a sponsor on SEC Sidelines.
Speaking my language, I'm gonna check them out. I need some gear as we get into the prime time in Alabama, the hunting season, duck and whitetail.
Yeah, and they've got a building. They have a huge store up front, and then in the back, another building. It's got deer stands. It's like Disney World for the deer hunter. It'll blow your mind when you go in there. Winter Timber.
Rob, I've got to talk. It's just a quick data point, and I should retire that word at the end of this year because the playoff.
I like that term.
I usually like it, but the playoff, it's become an unpleasant term now, as you saw when Shane Beamer said, if I hear a data point from this playoff committee chairman again, I'm going to vomit. We all are. And, why did we think, Rob, I don't think you did, you're a smart guy, but why did we think that when it went to 12, it would eliminate 90% of the controversy. It did not. They could go to 30 and we'd be arguing on ESPN about how the 32nd team got screwed.
Yes.
But I want to just add this data point of the weirdness of the coaching carousel. Scott, I'm going to crescendo up to the coup de grace that you can probably guess. Scott Frost returns after some failed efforts at different places. And I like Scott Frost, and he showed Auburn, he showed Gus Malzahn how to play football in that game. But he's back at UCF, and I think it might work. They embraced him. I think alignment and people appreciating who you are and how you're going to coach the program, how you're going to recruit will help them. Then you've got Gus Malzahn, who left there ahead of the Lynchman showing up, is going to be, of all things, at $2 million a year, 3-year contract, OC at Florida State, the school that broke his heart. And I was sitting there in Pasadena, and now the penultimate weirdness, Bill Belichick with his 28-year-old girlfriend. I don't think they're married yet. At North Carolina, and he looks and sounds like he's fired up about it. But I just think it's going to be like watching a reality TV show. Something is going to crash and burn. Your thoughts, Rob?
Well, and Bo Carter will join us in just a minute. Bo's got some very good insight he wants to share with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing it. But my take on Bill Belichick is he's 74, but he is young, youthful. And he is.
You like it?
I don't know if I like it, but I do know this. I was told by someone that knows last night, after they hired him, their NIL fund went from $4 million to $20 million in a matter of hours. He
follow the money.
And one thing about Bill Belichick is that he is a historian, a student of the game. He loves history, and
his dad coached an Army for 50 years, he said. It's just an amazing, the guy is somewhat introverted, people might say, but people I know that have been around him, like Pat Dye Jr. said when he took his dad to Nantucket, he said, hey, I'm bringing my dad up for a couple of weeks to stay at the house. He'd love to meet you, man. He's a big fan. Coach Belichick said, yeah, come on. They went to like the Harbor, I think it was the name of the bar there at Nantucket, overlooking the sound, the water. And they went up there, and he said it was just incredible. He said Dad and him started talking. Here's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And Bill Belichick, he said his girlfriend came up on her bike and started yelling, hey, we've got to go to this party. And he goes, just a minute. And he just couldn't stop. He said, but it was the other way around. It was him asking Dad about all these old stories about college football and the memories and all. I thought that's really cool. And then Tim Horton, our friend from Auburn, told me about the time he came to Pro Day. He goes, this guy's looking over my shoulder, and finally I turned around and said, hey, he goes, I'm Bill Belichick. He goes, oh, really? I've never heard of you. He's got on a old hoodie, baggy khakis, white socks, and those black coach's shoes. And he's just like asking questions about players that they would ask if they were interviewing you, people that know you about a position with the CIA. I think he's got a lot left in his tank. Now, well, I don't wish against that. I'd like to see North Carolina. This does, if they do start showing a trajectory that's competitive with Clemson year in, year out.
Yeah.
And the reason I say Clemson is they have been the standard in that league until this year. Yeah. And they might prove that their worth again the way this is going. But with Saban retiring, Belichick's the closest we've got, I guess. Probably leaving some guys out that I just don't know well, but who is a force of nature and just has an intimidation factor, both with opponents and players. And, it will not hurt North Carolina when they're recruiting that kids show up for a visit. And, oh, by the way, a guy named Tom Brady is there just hanging out with his old coach. I'm not saying Brady would coach, but I had a nonsensical but still delicious thought. If Belichick can do this, then in a year, Belichick brings Nick Saban in to be his defensive coordinator. He brings Urban Meyer in to run an offense, and they just have a ball talking film study and X's and O's. Of course, this would never happen. All three of those would want to be head coaches. But it's just wacky and weird. And I'm probably leaving some coaching moves out that are some that are yet to come. Oh, Brian Harsin, offensive coordinator at Cal, I believe.
Oh, I guess so. They're getting out of the football.
Yeah, yeah. You know how Auburn people are going to feel about that one.
Yeah. Well, I'll say this: where's Pete Carroll come back? I mean, these guys look 74 in today's world. If you're taking care of yourself, is 45. Look at Pete Carroll.
I want it to be young, don't you, Rob? I'm cheering.
Hell yeah. I mean, look, why not? Look, hey, speaking of greatness, Landers Ford Memphis.com. And Brad Bellamy, he's out today. He's at a sales conference down in New Orleans. I'll say this, got a great call after the show yesterday from one of our regulars who watches the show and is on the show. Said, hey, I'm in the mood. I'm in the market. I got to get a new vehicle. Who do I call at Landers? That's what we love, folks. Support our sponsors. I said, call Brad Bellamy. He'll get you started. Open Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m., 7 p.m. sales, 7 a.m., 6 p.m. service department. Couple of things to keep in mind. They will pick you up wherever you are, home or office, when your car is going for service. They make it easy, okay? Look, they are all over. They just made a big commitment to my high school, Christian Brothers High School, with the new field and a bunch of stuff. They are invested in the Mid-South, but they will deliver anywhere. You become part of that Landers family. It's a commitment for life. There are stadiums all over the Mid-South. St. Jude Children's Hospital benefits, presenting sponsor of the Touchdown Club in Memphis. Hey, look, if you didn't buy your last vehicle from Landers, you probably paid too much. And Doug, I like and I'm looking for Bo Carter when he joins us, because Bo was longtime sports information director at Mississippi State, and then with the Southwest Conference office, and then the Big 12 office, National Football Foundation, the National Baseball Writers of America. He's writing a book about the Phillies right now. I think the Bill Belichick hire, we're going to see more stuff. Look, Nick Saban's too young to retire. He's 72. I guess as we all get older and our parents get older, what we thought was old 20 years ago, it ain't old. It's how you want to live your life. I think it's cool as hell Bill Belichick's back, because North Carolina's got money. And here's a guy, you're right. Come in for your recruiting trip. Hey, you want to go throw some balls with Tom Brady? I mean,
it's a state of mind. The guy's got to be healthy. To me, it's all about energy. Do they have the energy to you start seeing a coach look like he's waning, he's not enjoying it anymore? Then I don't care if he's 50 or 70. That's when the end is in sight and he needs to go do something else. And most of them go. By the way, I also heard, I think someone told me Dan Mullen is a lock to go to UNLV. That'll be one to. I don't know if that's broken yet. He's there.
Yeah. Give Brendan Martin and Buddy Martin credit for that one. Yesterday morning, early in the morning before the rooster crowed, and I used to wake the morning before.
Good job, Brendan and Buddy. I'm glad to see Mullen back. I liked how Mullen ran an offense. I know he had problems at Florida, but it can happen with great coaches. So I'm glad he's back on the field.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm not, speaking of old, Rob, I don't know about you. I'm not quite at that point of Clint Eastwood with a 12 gauge on my porch telling the kids to get the hell off my lawn, but I'm probably a year or two away from that. So I'm going to have to revive and, maybe ask Belichick and Saban, who does your coloring on your hair?
Well, look, I just think, you look how long Joe Paterno.
And they do, by the way. They both do.
Yeah. Well, but I think the thing about Belichick is he's the student of the game. And you know what he might be able to do coming in? He may be able to give some advice to the colleges that'll say, hey, man, you need to get these guys to stay longer. I need to get Jim Nagy on, executive director of the Reese's Pieces Mobile Senior Bowl. He keeps saying, Rob, come down for the week to Mobile. He said, do your show all week down here. I need to do that this year. What's cool is, he said, every NFL owner, every coach, everybody, and he said, everybody that comes down here that whole week, it's just it's all the people that are the movers and the shakers in the NFL are here, and I am what I am hearing though from some people is the kids coming in now, they're especially at the quarterback position. I mean, that's obvious. They're being rushed too much, and I think we're trying to microwave success. You can't do that. You can't do it.
Well, no, we can't. Sorry, guys. I was checking in. We've been busy this morning. How are you, Doug? Good to see you. I know.
Fantastic, brother.
Yeah. We did. I had nothing to do with it. Buddy called me yesterday and said, "This is what's happening in the next 10 minutes," which is like part of my life. It's just an interesting perspective. Hey, son, how are you? Can't tell anybody about this, but the world's about to completely implode in sports, and it's going to happen in 30 seconds. And then you watch TV. And you're like, oh, makes sense.
A subplot of that, Rob, that certainly not just Auburn, but some other programs will be interested in is, will Mullen keep that hot shot offensive coordinator at UNLV, because he's looked at head coaching jobs that if Derek Nix were to leave Auburn for example, for the USM head job, I don't know where that one's at. I'm told that, and help me with his name, I'll find it in a minute, the OC at UNLV, he runs this go-go, and they've had a sensational offense all year. Mm-hmm. So I'd love to see Hugh bring some fresh ideas in, but Hugh Freeze is still going to be calling the shots offensively.
Well, I think it's we talked a lot about this yesterday with Rob and Buddy and everybody else, but this spreads out the parity, right? And we get to now really see the college football I grew up on, which is everything out west, Nevada, California, Colorado, New Mexico, Nebraska, Iowa, all these kinds of great programs.
I like that.
And now we get to see that because of the arrival of the Dan Mullins and these coaches in these other places. And we saw some of this parity coming on with, in Texas, over the last couple of years, with these smaller schools coming up with. I just think it's going to be exciting to see what Dan Mullen can do. And I think if you're any sort of a professional and you always want to challenge yourself if you're any good, like you always want the challenge. I think you go out there and you can make a program like UNLV, a conversation or get you in the playoffs. I think, you kind of etch your name in history.
The OC in question I was mentioning, Brennan Marion, put that on your watch list, guys. He may stay there with Mullen. I'm sure Dan would love to keep him and have some continuity. But if he gets an opportunity to leave, I would love to see him look at the SEC. Maybe Auburn could get in the mix. Brennan Marion, bright up and coming guy.
Doug, I admittedly watched zero UNLV football this year. What's the offense currently?
He's nicknamed it the go-go offense. It's very innovative. So you're going to see a lot of the tempo work. But the rev
is like a hurry up offense, or is like
I think that might be oversimplifying it. But they had a school record 6 games scoring 40+ points. I know that's not SEC defenses they're going against, but the guy, he's really he's a hot name right now. And in UNLV, I really want Mullen. I had my issues with Mullen during the Cam Newton flap, but I'll let bygones be bygones. He's been great on air, but I'm really excited to see him get back on the field.
I am too. I've been a Dan Mullen. I'm a fan. I just like the way he coaches. I like his offensive mind. Obviously, he's an incredible quarterbacks collector, getting great talent in that position and developing that talent. He's got a proven track record. And I loved watching, you can always flip back on this channel here. You watch Best Fridays in Football, which is a great podcast and it's timeless because Urban talks about the years of coaching with Mullen and how he's like, I don't have Dan Mullen on headset. We don't win any natties. So, and I think that is key to understanding that I think Mullen comes from that place where he's very team, environment. He wants a good OC. He wants to have that sort of mindset. I think it bodes well going into a place like UNL.
Yeah, you got to have Jackie Sherrill's name in the mix.
Sure.
And I'm forgetting someone, but Dan Mullen is State fans, if they don't already, should hail him. Do you like that, Rob? Hail State.
Yeah.
They should
No
hail
pun intended.
Dan Mullen as being the head guy during the most successful era in a long time at State.
He is, and I think he's a brilliant offensive guy. He can develop quarterbacks too. Bo Carter, just keep trying to get through here. But
Bo must have the wrong link because he's not even shown up in our studio. So.
Yeah,
We roll on.
Yeah. I sent the same one I sent everybody else.
Hey, Rob, I was going to talk about this and get both of you guys' thoughts because it was provocative to me. When you had Ellis Johnson on, he talked about, and it's sort of heresy to say this, and I appreciated him doing it, that the SEC might be just ever so slightly down this year. And, if you want some evidence of that, some great teams loaded with talent, Ole Miss, Alabama, South Carolina. South Carolina was a little bit of surprise only because they won so big second half of the season. But Ellis Johnson's rationale, which I can't argue with, is that we might not have the number of elite, really polished quarterbacks that we've had some years. When you talk about the quarterbacks Alabama's put on the field. And so I think he's onto something there. But I would say that with the portal, I know Auburn, half the SEC is all over this frantic portal move that Jackson Arnold looks like he's the leader in the clubhouse at Auburn, but there's Malik Murphy and possibly the kid at Stanford. I think Hughes surprisingly wants to sign 2 quarterbacks with experience. But I don't think the SEC will be down or subpar for long at all. I think next year could be quite amazing because if Ewers goes somewhere and Arch Manning is at Texas, that's what most people think. Maybe it'll be the reverse of that. Then you've automatically improved somebody else at QB.
Yeah, but I'm curious. I think Quinn Ewers has missed 7 or 8 games in the last 3 years. Durability is everything in the NFL. And I just say it just is really tough to think about Quinn Ewers in the NFL. I think he's a good. I don't see him as an NFL quarterback. There's just certain guys. You've got to be so tough. Archie Manning was as tough.
I think on the right franchise, I could see him.
I could. I mean, he's a great kid. I mean, but I just, man, you get beaten up so bad. And look at these quarterbacks that have come out of the SEC the last few years. Bryce Young, Anthony Richardson, 13, 15, 17 starts in their career. They're not ready for the NFL. They go in there, they come in, they got some game early. People, they kind of shock and awe, but then people get tape on them. You look at Jalen Hurts. He's gotten that $250 million contract. People figure you out. You've got 2 or 3 year window. And after that, man, you better be constantly evolving. And that's so critical. And I hope Bo Carter can join us. I know he's in Russellville, Alabama right now, but Hewlett and Dunn, guys, you see all the Christmas background. Christmas is the season. Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company on the historic square in Collierville, Tennessee. Go out there now. They're open every day during Christmas, Sundays, 12 until 5. You like boots? Great looking men's and women's boots. They have over 7,000 pairs. They've also got Filson, all the gear, shirts, jackets, luggage, Barber. If Barber makes it, they've got it at Hewlett and Dunn. Duckheads, you'd have to go back to the 70s to the Museum of Duckheads to see this many Duckhead. Everything. Duckhead has great looking blazers, pullovers. They've got pants, button downs, vests. And I'll tell you something else that's really cool. Old South, Kimes Ranch, Pendleton, Schaefer, Rock Mount shirts. Some of the best looking clothes you'll find anywhere. Let them know you heard about it on Sidelines. Guys, when I want to say something I'm hearing over and over. I saw Heather Dinich on SEC Network. They're talking about Ward Manuel. Okay. Ward Manuel, let's talk about his qualifications and why he's chairing this committee because we all know this. Clemson had to struggle to beat SMU. SMU lost in both matchups, I believe, against ranked teams. You say, well, Alabama lost 3 games to a 6-6 Oklahoma and 6-6 Vandy and a 10-2 Tennessee. And it's like, well, they also beat Georgia. Okay. That might be, and you've said this maybe, Doug, I know Brendan and we all have, that might be the best win of any team in college football this year. We all know this was inclusive. Let's give everybody a safe space and a puppy. Georgia's the best team in America, and they will win the national championship.
Proven otherwise. Yeah, I think
Oregon is a hell of a team.
Yeah.
But I still think Georgia, when you corner the dogs, Doug, it's the best team in the country. And Gunnar Stockton endeared himself to the Bulldog Nation as a badass for that hit he took. And I don't think it was targeting. Do you?
No, well, I've seen and this. Don't get me started, Rob, about
referees. I can't start with that. The targeting shit is just you grew up playing football, man. Targeting does not make sense. It's everything that you didn't learn.
In that spot, the referees did what I call, they knew the moment, and they knew they damn well better not take that defender both of those teams were going to make the playoff. They cannot take the starting defender off the field for the first half of their first playoff game. And so, but normally, and I've had referees I'm not going to name them, but referees tell me that they are instructed that if it's close, you throw the flag and you call it targeting, because they can always clean that up.
Yeah, they can always take a look at it.
And they automatically review, and they should have probably called that targeting. And then if they want to, reverse it on review. But I just explained why that was probably their mindset was. And it was admittedly, I don't think it was intentional targeting. Now we're into reading the minds of these athletes.
Yeah, it's impossible. When you see things, I did slow motion replay for a living. When you slow things down, you see things obviously that you're not going to see. But when
you different reality,
it's a different reality, and it's impossible once you're going full tilt. And your whole, you don't look. It's already down to milliseconds and reaction and twitch time, anyways.
Especially
really
was this a catch or not when they play that crap?
Yeah. We had Dr. Andrews on the show. Remember a couple of years ago talking about the Auburn-Penn State game. He goes, I was standing on the sidelines with a couple of other doctors up at State College, and Zacoby McClain, Auburn's linebacker, was trying to get the Penn State guy, keep him from going in the end zone. He instinctively, when the Penn State guy lowered his head to get in there, lowered his body to make the tackle, and they call targeting. And look, when you have soft people in charge, weak people in charge, we're all about player safety. Don't give me this crap, okay?
Yeah, but it's not. We can't do anything.
The vaccine. You've got to do it. No, don't tell me what to do.
Well, calm down.
No, but I'm saying
vaccine in the politics.
No, but I'm saying
we went way off the reservation. Let me finish. Okay,
I'm just saying about the targeting. Nobody wants to see people get hurt. That's all I'm saying. And the doctors are saying, and Brendan's right. Brendan's 6'4". If a guy lowers his head, and Brendan's playing tight end or what, you just naturally are reacting. Nobody's trying to get hurt, but they're making it to the point where a physical team has to pull back sometimes, and that can cost them a game. Brendan, go ahead and finish. I just want to say
that you have to. The way it was wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
We grew up wrong. Okay. I'm telling you, we don't, you coaches should walk around with whistles and bang them on the top of the head. Like, we didn't know that stuff. When you went, play bull in a ring, when you played Oklahoma, when you did these things, you were scared to play. You were scared to do it because, the whole idea was to man up and get you to go head up. Look, but you learned the wrong way. I don't have a problem with targeting. Yeah. I don't have a problem. I just don't understand it. And I don't know how to not do it. And that is my issue. I don't know where I go wrong if I played defensive back. I played tight end. I just don't know. I'm sure they tell them. Even now I have a hard time really understanding what's targeting and what's not targeting.
What drives you crazy.
Good point, Brendan.
Is when in the bang, bang, quick plays of, it could be a defender, a running back going down, dropping down at this precise moment that the DB was attempting to tackle him in the midsection perfectly legally.
Yeah.
And just that you have two helmets collide and all of a sudden a player is ejected, and it affects outcomes of games. But I guess we all applaud at least the intention and effort to reduce the amount of hits. And I was coached, I don't know about you guys, I know you probably were. I was coached to try to put guys out of the game. I'll just say it.
Absolutely.
I mean, not like end their life, but hit hard and maybe they go out because they've got bruised ribs, and it was a vicious physical.
I was told that like go for the body, instead of the ball sometimes, just to let them have a little bit of like, hey, I'm back here, I'm going to have some footsteps. It's just, I think it's what's hard. People don't understand is that you're taught to come in with your helmet. You're taught to look at the midsection of somebody running at you, because you can't juke it. If you look at the ball or their eyes, you're going to get juked, and you got to look at their midsection to see if they're, to try to make the best angle. And then your whole angle of attack is to get your hat sideways into their stomach and wrap up all the way around so you don't alligator, arm tackle or whatever it may be. Now, that's a difficult angle to come in. You're going to come in direct, and then you're going to turn to grab and tackle. Sometimes, to me, it's like, how do you not collide head to head sometimes? And it's not intentional, but it looks intentional in slow motion replay, but it wasn't.
No, and I think that the NFL gives you sort of a North Star. They're not perfect on violence, and I think most of those guys, there's a code among NFL players that listen, we're all getting paid. We've got families. Let's not try to put people in people's careers or in their season. There's some defensive linemen might not always comply with that unwritten rule, but college will get more and more like that, but it'll probably never be perfect to our eyes.
Doug, ask Bradshaw about that. Ask Terry Bradshaw about how he feels about quarterback. What was the in the grasp rule for quarterbacks? Who walked back there and just picked him up and snapped his neck when he threw him down in the back. I mean, there's a reason for some of this stuff.
Well, I'll add credibility to what both of y'all just said. Ben Troop, we love Big Ben on this show all the time. And he said the reason you see these guys hugging each other after games, opponents on the other teams, is we're like, man, God, I made it, and Doug's right. They got families, got income, and they do not want to try to hurt each other. But it's a physical game. Dad says if you want to teach people, if they don't know how to tackle, you want to remind them, put the leather helmets on. He goes, I played with no face mask, and so that helps you a lot in just fundamentals and stuff like that. But I will say this, Steve Shaw said targeting, the number of targeting calls keeps going down, and it's just the constant stoppage of the games. But, hey, great show today, folks, everybody. Awesome stuff. We'll get Bo Carter on next week. He's in North Alabama.
Hey, Rob.
Internet. Yeah.
Army Navy tomorrow. I never miss that. I know Dave is going to be tuning in early throughout that one. It's a heck of a game.
I will be watching that on the Color TV on the 14th of December. Still playing. Hey, most often we see the face of Christ in the least among us. We are the greatest country in the world. Go out and help other people. We'll see you Monday. Thank you for watching. Awesome show.
In a perfect world, you'd set a health goal and results would happen overnight. In this world, the real world, it takes time, dedication, and the right support to achieve your best self. The Vitamin Shoppe health enthusiasts are here to make sure you're not wasting a single moment on the wrong supplements. From the highest quality sports nutrition and superfoods to the most sought after trends, you'll find a huge variety of science-backed solutions for every goal. And the people to help guide you along the path to greatness.
Unbelievably, every 2 minutes in our communities, a child is either bought or sold for sex. I am R.A. Dickey, board member for the Nashville Anti-Human Trafficking Coalition. Join me and millions of others in our fight against human trafficking and for its victims by helping to educate the most vulnerable among us, our middle and high school students. Go to nhtcoalition.org, become a partner, and help keep our families safe, because none of God's children are for sale.